Alrighty, guys, we're going to get started here with our end of day webinar. Let's discuss today's price action, some of the setups out there, and we got a pretty stacked watch list for tomorrow in the small cap space. Actually, I've been paying close attention, and I like a lot of the charts that we'll discuss later on today in the webinar near the end when we go over the watch list portion. Let's go back to what we talked about yesterday in yesterday's webinar and into the close yesterday. This daily chart candle, gosh, it just got me so bearish today. It really did. I was really looking at this as a big opportunity for us to get a trade to the short side today. We discussed it in the late part of the day yesterday. We talked about it in the webinar. The only hope that I was holding on to, though, is that we didn't get gapped out of this thing, because a lot of the time when I see these types of setups, we often end up with a gap down. And that is always disappointing, because then you end up with a chart that's already made the move in pre-market, and then you're kind of stuck with, usually if it opens weak after a gap down, you have to wait for a big bounce, and a lot of the move is already kind of gone. But I think people were probably waiting on Jerome Powell's speech today before they made any big decisions. I'm more of a technical trader, so I already knew I wanted to be short. But yeah, I mean, just couldn't really ask for much better in terms of a daily chart. An hourly chart setup for a continuation lower today, and it went, I mean, well beyond what I expected. I mean, the first big level of target for me on a short today, if we got a trigger, was going to be around 403, back towards that 4-hour chart trend, and the biggest, target would be towards a daily chart, which at the time was around 402. As we're currently speaking now, we're trading at like 398.30, and we actually hit as low as around 397.35. So really, really big trend day today. We've endured, some weeks in early February of a lot of sort of back and forth action. We've had some good trends on the daily chart into the mid to later part of the month. We had those few days of rallying, and man, this was just, gosh, that was just such a good look on that daily chart for a reversal. The big thing for me was if we broke, like I said in yesterday's webinar there, if we broke yesterday's lows today, that could trigger an awful lot of sell pressure and leave a lot of room for downside action. So that was the main watch for me today. Although there was some small cap stuff out there, today was definitely a day to be focused on futures, whether it was SPY puts or futures short or SPY short or whatever ETF you're trading that follows SPY. Today was a day to be doing that for sure. Tomorrow, I imagine it'll be maybe a little bit more small cap focus, because we got a great looking watch list there. But yeah, overall, obviously couldn't be happier with the outcome from today. Now, let's talk about the morning session. What got us into the trade, how we kind of managed it. I'm going to try to take you guys back to this. We'll go back to a 5-minute and 1-minute chart from the morning. It's gonna be a little hard to see everything there with the that big drop that happened. It kind of squishes the chart a bit, but we'll just go like this. So this is the opening 30 to 45 minutes of the day today. This was the 5-minute chart up top. We're just gonna stick a 1-minute chart down below. So a lot of sort of chopping around and consolidation early on. You guys saw me today a little more aggressive on the short side than I'm really more aggressive than you normally see me on any side, but I just needed to be in this trade today. And I didn't mind if I had to take a couple of nips to get it, but with really good, risk management strategy and taking profits into some of the early bear flags, I mostly walked away with some small profits on these. I took a pretty early one, bear flag right here. This is pretty much right to the gate. Within the first 15 minutes. Very rare for me to do, but again, I think today was a special kind of day in terms of the potential for downside. And well, I think the only thing, guys, is that that probably just would have worked, but I think people were waiting on the Jerome Powell speech, so took a short. Got some scalps near low a day, and then reduced the size a little bit as it came back towards break even, and then a flag. A really nice exit on that flag to get out of the way so it could just do the flag. And then once that flag kind of went through, I'm just looking to get short again. So I was just looking to get short, and I didn't really mind if it was going to take a couple of times, but I think it only took two. This was the one right here. So this is really just in line with what I drew out in the alerts channel this morning. What we talked about is, I was hoping that we would maybe catch some early shorts. Now, granted, I was going to be in there because I knew that if we broke 404 area, that was going to break yesterday's lows. I did not want to get left behind for the sake of trying to be too careful. Obviously, with the early entry, if it goes, great, it goes. If it doesn't, then I take a small profit in the dip, get out near break even, let it flag, get out of the way. Had good foresight to see that coming, so jumped out of the way, let it flag, just ready to get back on the horse here as soon as it failed that flag. So now we had a couple of spots where potentially some overhead longs might have been caught here and here. We definitely got some early shorts, so the shorts that would have taken right out of the gate. You'll never see me do that usually, but that or down here, those guys got stopped out up here. So now we have just a little bit of a better setup. It's always better closer to 10 a.m. and almost all my trades are going to be a little bit closer to that 10 a.m. or 10:15 mark once we have more chart data developed. But the level, the trigger point for me here was going to be 404.36, and the most recent lower high before that trigger was 404.57. And you guys know that on an average day, I mean, when you're trading SPY or if you're trading futures, the risk is usually going to be even a little bit wider than that. I mean, it's only about 21 cents a share risk, right? So typically 35 to 45 cents is kind of where, 25 to 45 cents is kind of where SPY lives in terms of just like the volatility and how wide the stops need to be to make it work. But yeah, I mean, this was even tighter than usual, 404, 36, 35 entry with risk off 58 basically. So this was just before Powell began speaking at 10 a.m. Now, I was fully prepared to take a stop on this. I did have a hard stop, a full hard stop at 404.58. The way I was seeing it was a lot of the time, if when he speaks or if there's like Fed meeting stuff going on, we're gonna have some whipsaw, and a lot of the time, the truth is a lot of the time you do end up with a lot of the time a little bit of a spike in both directions, which isn't great because if you're, I typically don't like to be short into these meetings because, or long into these meetings because you'll usually get a little bit of a whipsaw on both sides. But there's just too much potential to pass up on here. The worst case scenario, what's the worst thing that can happen? I have a hard stop in, it's a 1 hour stop. That's the worst thing that can happen. And if that happens and that flag fails, I would actually have chased it back down. That's how short bias I was today. So it's just in there, in it to go today, in it to win it, man. And this was one of the better outcomes that we could have asked for because when he began speaking, it was negative right away about interest rates increasing, and you can just see, I mean, one of the biggest moves, I mean, one of the biggest 1 minute candle moves I've seen in a long time that just went on to crush through all the profit targets that I normally have. And one of the best things was I did have a stop in there, but I didn't have any profit targets in because I didn't know how far down we were going to go. So in that first candle, I didn't even have a chance to take any early covers. It was already at 403.50 before I could blink. So the first cover was right around that 403.50 area, and I managed to trail this thing deep down towards 402, just under 402. And even then, there was still a lot more left on the table there. But wow, just what a big outcome for that trade. This is obviously not something that's going to happen every single day, and like I said, a lot of conviction today, but not necessarily over leveraging or oversizing, just prepared for a bigger than usual move if we got the right setup, and couldn't really be much more happy with that outcome. I did think that once we got, I sort of saw the signs like we look for in a lot of the type of bottoming action that we often see and look for. I just kind of saw that tail wick to the downside under 400 at that point. Don't want to be trying to look at shorts anymore. But after that, we had a really nice full bounce up towards that. Well, finally, first of the 5 minute chart, but then once we start looking at the bigger time frames, you can see we got some large bounces. So one all the way to the 15-minute chart. Well, that's a big enough bounce that you can start looking at shorts again after that. I mean, that was a big size correction. You don't want to be looking for any shorts down here. The move's already done there. But once we've taken out some shorts into a flag, like this one right here, Well, if you miss the initial move, there's some potential to get in some of these areas over here where now we've had a test of the bigger time frame trend, we've rejected it, and we can sort of jump back in and start to like try to ride that wave back down again. For the rest of the day after that, I did scalp with smaller size. It was just it was one of these, rare days where you're able to, you can get away with so much on the short side. Um, Anytime that I saw like a fail flag, I was looking to scalp a little bit short. So I was kind of padding the nice morning trade throughout the afternoon, but you know, with a certain amount of discretion and cautiousness, as we were pretty extended to the downside. There was one spot that I thought was well, I pointed this out to you guys, but it was almost, man, it was really really good looking right there. We finally had another big enough correction right over lunch where we tested up towards that hourly chart 40210 area, and yeah, from there we set up a new reversal signal that, granted, I feel like it broke a tad bit early, but today's the kind of day where longs are just jumping out the window. So it's just going to be one of those days where it's going to be a little bit harder to get that A plus setup where there's going to be like the perfect rounded lower high, and people are panicking today. So it's one of those days where it's okay to be a little bit more aggressive on the short side, but guys, only if you know that you can switch it off tomorrow. Because if you trade aggressive like this every day, it's not going to work well. But on certain days where the context is just undeniable, shorts are going to be able to get away with a little bit more. The same way when we're having like the opposite effect, like we've had some big squeeze days not too long ago. Those were days where you could get away with a whole lot more on the long side, be a little bit more aggressive on the long side. The most recent one in my memory is back here. So yeah, I mean, shorts really needed to cover out there. That was a tough spot for shorts, and man, did it ever ultimately create interesting scenario now for this daily chart, and where we might be heading in the future. Um, we got, I mean, geez, we got, so this weekly chart, we've had several failed flags on it. So we're talking big picture now. Um, this was actually, I was very much more long bias in the short term over here. We had just a real nice weekly chart flag. This was finally clearing out the shorts. And anytime that there's too many people on one side of the trade, and I know that a lot of people were so bearish, and you got lots of people playing puts and shorts and all kinds of areas like this. This is just what we needed to clear those shorts out of the way, give us an opportunity to jump, to clear those shorts and give a fresh setup. And that's kind of what this was over the last, 5, 6 weeks. It's been a while, so it takes a while for these things to happen. But you see 3 weeks of kind of flagging over taking out a lot of the shorts and a flag break there. And then we had a week where we kind of broke back under a little bit, and then it kind of almost looked like a fake out to the short side there. You can see a new flag line was starting to form. We would have to be, remaining to be a little bit more long bias if we wound up here holding on and then setting up to break out like that. But it was really that candle yesterday that got me just really really hot on the short side today. And you know, I was hot enough that overnight puts were an option. Obviously, just trading intraday with futures was a good option too. Intraday today, which is what I did mostly. So now we are back under daily chart trend. Now we still have this big bear flag line here to break, and you know anything can happen. News can change, and market sentiment can change. But the next thing probably to look for is late this month. See if that we can get some nice continuations lower if we're going to stick in this bear market territory. Obviously, the sentiment could change. If that does, back over 404, we'll be starting to look at possible long bias again, or you know, uh, something similar to what we saw here, where we see something that fails, then we can kind of look at shorts again in the big picture. But for now, we're obviously well back under that daily chart and weekly chart trend in the same day. So really impressive all around day for the bears. And yeah, just one other thing there is, now, and also on the weekly chart, like 2, 3 weeks from now, this would be a really good looking setup for a continuation lower for people that are looking at, maybe further out expiration put options or whatever it is that you're into. So that's all I got for SPY today, really in terms of analysis. For tomorrow, I mean, I'm hoping we can get some continuation, but that's been a really big move the last 2 days. I'm not entirely expecting it. I think I'll probably just be kind of open to just looking at setups on both sides. We'll see how things go. But if we close kind of weak today, if we open weak tomorrow, I think we'd probably need to see a little bit of a bounce over the next few days and some consolidation. But if I do see those signs of continuations, I'll be watching to let you guys know if I'm looking at taking any trades there. Small caps today, VRAX. This one just didn't do much of anything, didn't get any signals on it. The only reason I'm keeping it on watch is because it did hold up into the close today over the trend. This is probably not going to be our favorite watch for tomorrow, but it's going to be one that'll stay on the list just because it's still in play, and I like to keep these on for a few days. As often I'll find multi-day flags down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 days down the road. I'll see a multi-day flag kind of form, much like IBIO, where this one was in play for a while, and then it kind of came back, and you can see this daily chart just kind of came and set back up today. So I like to keep these things on watch. I'll often use a price alert so I don't have to, check on them every day, but I'll kind of know where the main trigger point is going to be on the daily chart, put a price alert in, and just come back to them as we get towards those interesting levels again. UNCY was mostly a fader today. We're pretty much pulling all the way back here on this 4-hour chart. We got a really big kind of nasty looking upper wick on the daily chart. This is not going to be a favorite watch tomorrow on my end, but we can probably keep an eye on it anyways, just in case. You never know. This still could have a multi-day bear flag. Lots of room on the daily chart. If it got back over 160 and tried a multi-day long, I'd probably give it a shot. But I think the odds probably favor this one going lower based on the daily chart extension, unless we just kind of trade sideways for a few days. But we'll keep that on watch. Those aren't my favorites. There's a few down the list here that are looking a little bit more interesting. TDUP had a fairly decent, actually a really, really decent looking early setup on the 15 and 5-minute chart today. It was under VWAP, but really good 15-minute chart trend hold after the first pullback. Nothing in the afternoon on this one, but it is closing over the hourly chart trend, still holding up nicely there. That one can definitely stay on watch for tomorrow, so that one will keep up there. SOUN, a little bit quiet on this one lately. We've had some setups on this one in the past. I'm not really ready for this one tomorrow, but a few days of consolidation to see if the daily chart holds up. It's also on the weekly chart right there, so it's still hanging around. It's got a bigger float. Not ready for this one tomorrow, like I said, but keep an eye. Some sideways for a few days. Just kind of keeping an eye on this one down the road if we continue to hang on and need some volume, maybe some news to help it get moving. ALBT, this one was a little bit too low volume for me today. I pointed out the multi-day flag earlier, but it wasn't one that was really going to interest me on it, to try to catch 13 cents long on a stock with no volume on a day where there's pretty much endless futures opportunities and SPY opportunities. But that one's hanging in there. Daily chart's not going to be ready for a move higher tomorrow, I don't think, but keeping it on watch. CDIO, just happened to notice that daily chart starting to bounce today. This is why I keep these on watch. So we've had a big move, we've had a big pullback. Next step now is to see if we can set up a trade and see if it can maybe hang on. I want to say 525 is going to be kind of a key area, and just keeping it on watch tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday in case we set up to break 582. So I'll stick a price alert up there in the 70s so I can get it on watch. I might even just get one in there in the 60s, get it on watch a little earlier. This might not do anything, but if it does, end up hanging on for a day or two in here, then we got a chance for a trade there, so we'll keep that on. BLPH, another one, just kind of kept it on watch because I had a good daily chart breakout a few days ago. Extended up here today. It did make a nice continuation today. Pretty extended. Still didn't quite break those prior day's highs. I'd have to think that if we do that tomorrow, that's going to be the end of the move in the short term because we're just going to be too extended, but definitely worth keeping on watch. Yeah, just a lot of good looking daily chart setups out there, which is refreshing for the small cap space and get me interested. I think SFR is a couple days away, but that one's starting to get a little closer. Let that daily chart catch up as it consolidates a bit. AMAM was, like we talked about earlier today, hourly chart reversal, more of a short bias today. Had the big squeeze yesterday, so today was, was due for a good pullback, and we got that pullback. So BBIO, this one's not looking as hot to me. Actually, I think I'm gonna scratch that one. It's just not really my style of trade or setup. The rest of these BLBS, like again, I just keep these on watch because down the road this one could, set up for that daily chart move. So I might just stick a price alert under 110 on that one. Come back to it another day. And IBIO was, I think that this move was very, very good today. We had a daily chart, multi-day flag like we talked about, um, hourly chart and daily chart. Weekly chart was pretty good. Might have a little more juice in it tomorrow, but if there is any left, I'd say tomorrow's it. There's also a lot of resistance on the daily chart right around this level, so I think it's too late for longs here. I think the last chance to buy this one was the intraday setup through 81, risking off 72. So pretty solid watch list for tomorrow, guys. We got a lot of potential for this week. I think it's going to be an exciting week for just trading SPY and futures in themselves, but also small caps are really starting to shape up. Did not see any questions in the webinar questions channel. So remember, guys, you always got the opportunity to ask me anything you want at the end of each day. So feel free to post up there tomorrow if you have any ideas. Be happy to go through some other setups or go over some charts that you want me to look at, or if you have a trade you want me to break down, I'm always happy to do that. And that'll be it for today, guys. Have a great night. Nice work today, and we'll see you tomorrow.